Thank you very much, Dr. Ashok. Good evening. I have to comment that the academic activities at the Department of Political Science and Defense and Strategic Studies and Center for Canadian Studies has been carrying out in last 2 years. The contribution of these two faculties, Dr. Ashok Kumar and Vinesh Bhatia, has been immense. In such a short duration of time, in just 4 days, we had to go for this conference, for this national seminar. Their contribution is immense. I thank them. As is conventional, and from the core of the heart of the organizing committee of this national seminar, from my behalf, from the behalf of organizing secretary Rajkumar ji and the G20 pre-events activities coordinator Professor Mamta Mokhtar, I extend warm welcome to Professor Rajendra Verma ji, a very young and dynamic person, and we have been in association, close association for quite long. So it's a matter of great honor and privilege for us that we have got the opportunity to have his presence here as chief guest. Our keynote speaker, Professor Ashutosh Kumar, this is not an unknown name to the students of political science. He has been frequent visitor to department. As a keynote speaker, Professor Balkrishan Shivram, Dean of Studies, a young and dynamic person. We hope that in the times to come, the academic activities will get triggered out at good pace. Professor Arvind Bhatt, the prime driver behind this G20 software of HP University. And more importantly, Professor Ashok Acharya ji. Sir, we are privileged to have your presence here in this house. The students of political science are well aware that Professor Acharya is a scholar, renowned international scholar of political theory. And rest of the dignitaries, Professor Ghosh, Professor Dhiman, Professor L.R. Verma, Professor Ranta, Professor Negi, whom I can trace. Well, laying the foundation for a seminar and the prime thread of the seminar, it's a tedious job. G20, it's a child of the post-World War II dynamics. If I take you to the 20th century dynamics, then from the Wilsonian world, we moved towards the world of realism. We faced the First World War, the Second World War, and the Wilsonianism gives way to Morganthianism. Though it's not a term, the realism of Morganthian. From IR perspective, we have been into the theories of realism, new realism, the theories of constructivism, feminism, and a lot more. Lots of things are there to be observed. I will take you to a different dimension. We have observed the world from the state, nature, and its theoretical observations point of view. I will take you to the world order perspective, which is important, which coexisted side by side with the state nature perspective. And that was, we in 20th century, the primary achievement has been that the traditional enemies, allies, they stood together to have the vision of a multilateral world. A multilateral world, the prime projection of which was United Nations, followed by World Bank, IMF, and other international institutions. So in the 20th century, the whole political landscape of 20th century was dominated by this multilateralism. And sorry to say, the 2/3 of the world was buffooned, or I would say befooled, by this philosophy of multilateralism. That United Nations is going to settle the things, UNSC has lots of powers to settle the things. We have seen what happened in Cuba, we have seen what happened in Korean crisis, later on Hungary crisis, and a lot more till the Gulf crisis, and right now we are having the Ukrainian crisis. This multilateralism has fallen flat. But in the meantime, it was not the complete ideological sway of multilateralism. It was never on the riding horse, and there were multiple interventions into this landscape of multilateralism, bilateral relations among states, and the bilateral relations groupings manifested through the bipolar world. And this bipolarity from 1947 till 1991 was the prime driver of international politics. Multilateralism was at the back seat. But as soon as the Berlin Wall falls, people who were suffocating under a strange environment in international politics dominated by the bilaterality of two poles, they found that they are into open air. But then there were different forces which tried to re-establish. I remember why G20 becomes important here. I'm making a theoretical background of that. Malthus in 1798 gave the theory of the population crisis. Public intellectuals have been the serious thinkers behind human life. Malthus gave the theory of population growth based on geometrical growth formula. Geometrical growth is just like 5, 10, 50, 250, 12, 50. Population increases like this. And population is checked by the natural barricades of food scarcity. When Earth fails to provide food to the increased population, that is called the population trap theory. Then the food scarcity automatically causes pandemics, epidemics, wars, and that's how nature maintains a balance. This was something that was derived from the primal world. His theory was carried forward by Paul Kennedy. Paul Kennedy, 1993, a British historian, he had lots of surveys analyzed, tabulated, and he found that the 21st century challenge will again be the population, but it will be accompanied by the challenges of robotics, the challenges of science and technology, the challenges of ethnic violences. In 93, this volume predicts about the things. And his theory was carried further and ratified by Francis Fukuyama when, after the American first narrative was floated in American air in 2016 by Donald Trump. He says that I was forced to write this volume, Identity. He says that we are suffering from different malaise. I won't go into the psychological connotations of his argument because he speaks about thymos, hyperthymos, and megalothymia, certain terms he introduces. The question of recognition. The question of recognition is just like an illiterate person in your village. You don't pass recognition to him because he is just fifth pass. But for the sake of recognition, he may take the help of local devta. And local devta will recognize him as a good, and he will dictate you. The demand for recognition is the demand for domination. If you want to associate and have further data on this, just listen to Krishnamurti lectures. Why people want recognition? An ascetic, a sadhu doesn't have any recognition. He is not into the world of Maya. And then this crisis of end of history and the crisis of identity has marred the world. Malthus' question of overpopulation was settled by Industrial Revolution. Industrial Revolution, we had lots of products, and the question of population and its needs and the growing market needs of people was met by Industrial Revolution. And in 21st century, the growing population and the question of meeting the needs of this growing population was met by the idea of globalization. We heard this word, it was quite fascinating word from 1991 till 2005. But then we had lots of growth. India's growth rate rose from where to where. Now we are involved with the processes of anti-globalization, deglobalization. If I bring to your mind, these are not, sometimes I find that when we go for the growth of India, we find a natural tendency among Indian intellectuals about overstatement of that. I am bringing to your notice the medicine tables. The things are bright for India. I am bringing to your notice the reports of IMF. IMF says that by 2027, India will be the third largest economy. India will leave behind Japan and Germany. UK is already behind. By 2030, India will turn into a 10 plus trillion economy. Medicine Table, a World Bank sponsored agency of British economist, medicine, you can Google for it. It says that by overall historical outlook, it appears that by 2050, India will be the leading GDP global power, leaving behind United States and China. It may be overstatement of medicine. This is not individual statement of an Indian. This is a statement of a British agency, because they have seen the history of India. They have seen from the first century onward, they took the Indian subcontinent as a sample of growth from Indian subcontinent. On the basis of that, he found that till 14th century, India was the largest economy of the world, followed by China. From 14th to 17th century, it was China. India was placed second because of, we all know the historical reasons. And after industrial revolutions, the things turned upside down. Now we will definitely have the wheel of history chakra repeat as per these reports. Now I am coming to what was the G20 and what was the causes, what were the causes behind its foundation. We all have heard that out of that multilateralism of United Nations, international agencies, organizations, there was a movement towards minilateralism. Minilateralism means it was a small agency of Uncle Sam that was called the Group 8. The students of political science, I think at least remember that. And after Soviet disintegration, Russia was later on thrown out of that and it turned into a G7. But then there was lots of protest against G7 because it was the Uncle Sam Club, the Western club, in which the only strong voice of Russia that was subdued. So there was talk of including South. So in 1999, somewhere around 1999, we had a severe economic depression in Asia. Out of that, G20 was conceived. It was a child of the circumstance. I remember one quote, if the organizing secretary allows me to take time, because we have to carry this session forward. In British Parliament, there was a new parliamentarian in House of Commons. First time he got elected. And he was a little bit diffident also to express himself. So when he started in the House, he was given the chance to ask a question. He started, Mr. Speaker. He couldn't move forward. Again he said, Mr. Speaker, I conceive. Mr. Speaker, I conceive. Mr. Speaker, I conceive. The gentleman sitting next to him shouted at Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, this gentleman has conceived thrice but produced nothing. Now, we are scared about the future of G20. It was devised. It is a Western design to placate the voices of the South. So G7 was expanded to G19, and strange, European Union is the 20th member. And strange, this is a strange organization on certain fronts. United Nations, World Bank, IMF are the guest members of this organization G20. So it is not an organization of a state. This organization is transforming into an organization of individuals, states, and IGOs. And recently, I will be coming to the primary challenges that India has to face in this. We are having more than 200 sessions in India about G20, and in 50 different places that have been picked from the Indian states and union territories. That is different, and I'm not going into the structuration of the organization and the management, that is financial management and Sherpa management. There are different steps into that. These are the primary things that I don't want to discuss here. You can get on Google that. I'm bringing to your notice that in the process of anti-globalization, deglobalization means reverting back to the traditionality. We are not with the open world. Because out of the open world, out of the globalization, India is getting lots of growth, and China has scored the best. And the third world countries are now the south. The global south is getting more out of this process. So people are into deglobalizing. But then there are voices for reglobalizing. What is this minilateralism? This is a voice against the multilateralism, the Quad, the AUKUS, these mini organizations which are trying to settle the things with the help of the primal institutions, primal states, who can impact the foreign policy or the economic policy decisions of the state emphatically. If AUKUS or if Quad is settling the security question of India, what is the logic of going for UN peacekeeping forces which is performing just like ineffective agencies? What is the performance of United Nations in Ukraine? Multilateralism has been brought to dust by the Russian aggression of Ukraine. And the Greater Denmark statement of George Bush is paying a lot to United States. After the disintegration of Soviet Union, George Bush was asked about the status of Russia. And sarcastically he said that Russia is just like a Greater Denmark. And the Greater Denmark is on the feet. That was the first marginalizing statement from the West about Russia. It joined hand with China, and the Russo-Chinese collaboration is dictating the things. And this is what is happening in Ukraine. They have challenged this multilateral order. Now it's a very conflicting and complex situation. What would be the outcome? India is playing clever. We are playing again non-alignment. We have to follow our own policy. We have to follow our own interest. This is the prime duty of every state. This is what realism speaks, what constructivism speaks. National interest lies at the root. But the Indian stand marginalizes India. It gets marginalized from the West as well as from the East. Now there are two possibilities. When India got the presidency of G20, it had lots of opportunities to settle the things. G20 is important because it has a platform, it is a forum from where the global economic policies could be directed. And India has made, for example, in COVID pandemic, India has performed immensely well, immensely great. This has been accepted by the world. India has distributed vaccine to more than 100 countries. The political voices and the ideological oppositions keep them apart. I'm speaking about the performance side. India has talked of three primary things. For example, out of Ukraine crisis, we are into shortage of wheat, and Ashok is forcing me. I will wind up in 2 minutes. So, India, due to Ukraine crisis, Ukraine and Russia are the biggest, the largest producer of wheat. and people are having the world is having wheat deficiency. So India has developed millet diplomacy. Millet is far better than wheat so far as the grain and the carbs are concerned. So millet can be more health friendly. So India is trying to promote the millet production through this G20 instrumentality. And then India is also talking of digital world. People, when these smart cards and mobile payments and QR codes, when these were introduced, people were saying, कि India, ये बेलदार, ये दुकानदार, ये मिस्त्री, ये digital payment करेंगे. You will be startled to know this is the statement of Mukesh Ambani in one of his speeches in Bihar, that I am surprised to know that 85% of the Indians are digitally connected. This is not true of America or European states. India has succeeded far more better than the West in digital world. And the third thing that India is promoting is that we have heard about the debt crisis of Sri Lanka. More than 70 countries of the world are placed under severe debt crisis. So India is focusing on that how to make the banking system more liberal and the loaning system more liberal to help these severely affected states. So there are lots of, India has 230 agenda also. 230 agenda is 10 plus trillion economy and keep the pace of its growth rate, which is, I was surprised to know that the government of India has withdrawn the loaning channel of Nitin Gadkari because of withdrawal of loans. But these are, let me remind you that if you want to make India a successful, developed state, the road goes through the infrastructural activities, the infrastructure built up in a state. So these are the highways, railways are the biological veins, the blood veins, the life veins of a state. They have to be rejuvenated. So these are the challenges that we are facing today. I wind up because people are now, first they were welcoming me, now they are staring at me. I think I should withdraw. Thank you very much. I once again welcome Professor Ashutosh ji, Professor Rajendra Verma ji, Professor Arvind Bhatt, Professor Balkrishan ji, and Professor Ashok Acharya ji for making this event a wonderful event, because their presence adds a lot to it. Thank you very much. Namaste.